B.R.I.C.S. Potential and Future in an Emerging New World Economy by Peter Koenig, September of 2017, from the Global Research website. The global economy and B.R.I.C.S. Let's put the B.R.I.C.S in perspective. The B.R.I.C.S are of course Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together they make up for almost 50% of the world population and close to 1/3 of the world's economic output, or GDP, which means gross domestic product. This alone would make them fully independent from the Western economy, from the Western, what I call, fraudulent dollar-based monetary system. And it will happen sooner than the world believes. However, with the current political structure of the B.R.I.C.S, the relative lack of political and economic coherence, save for Russia and China, this for the moment is just theory. If you allow me, let's backtrack a bit in history to where the term BRIC came from and who coined it. At the beginning, South Africa was not yet a member of the association. In 2001, shortly after the 9/11, in 2001, the chief economist of Goldman Sachs, Jim O'Neill, invented the term BRIC as he was forecasting that these emerging economies spread throughout the world, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, would overtake the so-called Western economy by 2041. The forecast was later revised several times all the way to 2032, and now there is, I believe, no formal forecast, but it could be easily happening by 2025 or earlier, especially with the new oil for yuan and the gold exchange market soon to be opened in Shanghai. Many predict this to be the end of the petrodollar and the end of the dollar hegemony. Then, strangely and formidably, the four BRIC countries realized their potential and took things in their own hands. That's how dynamics work, often totally unpredictably. For sure, Goldman Sachs and their chief economist had no clue that this would create the Western monetary and economic system's most daunting adversary. The first BRIC summit was held in Russia in June of 2009. That was the formal conference to create the BRICS. By 2011, the five countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, plus South Africa, were the five fastest growing emerging markets. And in April of 2013, South Africa was added to the BRIC group to make it formally the BRICS. This just as a little historic introduction to show that the impetus for the BRICS came actually from a most unlikely Western source, Goldman Sachs. In the meantime, the BRICS are struggling with another reality. For the BRICS to be an effective alternative to the Western economy or the Western monetary system, they need a unified political vision, as well as a coherent and unified economic development approach, one that distances itself from the Western dollar-euro-based system. Unfortunately, today this is not so, but that doesn't mean it will not happen. Personally, I believe it will. It may just take longer than the majority of the world may have liked. Both Brazil and India are totally in the hands of Wall Street and the World Bank and the IMF. In the case of India, you will recall last fall's deadly monetary fiasco, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to cancel more than 80% of the country's circulating cash currency, and as an interim step to replace it with other bills and eventually digitalize the Indian economy. It is not known how many poor Indians perished, those with no access to bank accounts, those who have no alternative means to pay for food. Uncountable small businesses failed, an important impact on the Indian economy. Much more inhuman was the impact on the poor average Indians. But Modi followed the dictate of the West, of Wall Street and the IMF, with a program to test digitalization in a large emerging economy implemented by USAID. How much trust does India under Modi as a B.R.I.C.S member deserve? And Brazil under neoliberal Temer, who is under accusation of corruption, he has literally handed his country's economy to the sharks of Wall Street, the IMF, and the World Bank. So when Temer and Modi stood there holding hands with the other three B.R.I.C.S members in Xiamen, China, on the 4th and 5th of September, it looked to me like a club that was united only by name. Yet the theme of this 9th B.R.I.C.S conference was B.R.I.C.S, Stronger Partnership for a Brighter Future. I truly hope this objective will be achieved, and it very well may over time. It is important to approach such an event in a positive and forward-looking spirit. Perhaps it was along the same philosophy that ahead of the September summit in Xiamen, President Putin said something crucial, but highly political and highly diplomatic. It is important that our group's activities are based on the principles of equality, respect for one another's opinions, and consensus. Within B.R.I.C.S, nothing is ever forced on anyone. When the approaches of its members do not coincide, we work patiently and carefully to coordinate them. This open and trust-based atmosphere is conducive to the successful implementation of our tasks. All right, folks, that's only an excerpt from this article. Please go to the links I'll show you below to read the rest of it. It's quite long and goes into more detail for you. I want to remind you that also this year, Putin has put an order into his government to stop using dollars for any trade in the largest ports in Russia. Venezuela has priced its petroleum now as an OPEC member in any currency other than the dollar, is the rule. The reserve banks of Switzerland, which create the SDRs, the specific deposit reserves, have created a fifth reserve currency based on the Chinese yuan. And when asked why, the director said it was to hedge against risk against the dollar. So all of these things, people, are pointing to a devaluation of the dollar on the market. The dollar today represents 22% of the world's GDP, but 80% of the cash trading. So that would mean effectively in a global market, the dollar is about 70 to 80% overpriced. Think about it. Thank you for coming to the Plain Mundane Show. Please hit like and subscribe and ring the bell for notifications. I'm Alex Aquarius.